Welcome to a Trekzone conversation where we dive into science fiction. Today we're continuing the Axanar theme with an interview several years in the making. Steven Mayhew, thanks for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, before we get into it, a quick reminder that you can get behind-the-scenes goss and early access to all Trekzone podcasts by becoming a member today. Click the join button on any Trekzone video. Go to the trek.zone/support. Put your phone up to the QR code on screen throughout the show. Steven, let's start at the beginning. How did you find out about Axanar?
I actually found out about Axanar through Renegades. I was getting to grips with social media, and I started a community group, and I was just finding out things about Star Trek, and I come across this. It wasn't particularly to my taste, but then I saw Prelude, which blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. So, yeah, it was just like this amazing sort of, fantasy where you're thinking a fan has made this amazing Star Trek, which I hadn't seen on telly or on social media for such a long time.
And I guess it really drew you in as well. It really was for a lot of people. Prelude to Axanar was the introduction to this fan film, and one that was really taking the internet by storm at that time. And you jumped in as a super fan, a self-appointed super fan. I think you said while we were prepping for this interview. What was the journey like overall for you?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would say definitely super fan. I mean, it had Richard Hatch in it. It had J.G. Hertzler. I mean, big fan of Martok from DS9, and Gary Graham who played Saval, and I loved him in Alien Nation. So, I was just like, oh my God, this great bunch of actors. And putting Richard Hatch as a villain was brave. But then, you see that in the Battlestar re-imaging. So it was just like great. And I was just like, there's got to be more of this. And, I was on Twitter shouting the pages, Axanar, Axanar. So, I got really behind it really quickly.
Now, you were pretty involved in defending the fan film and Alec. To those that spoke against them, what was it about the situation that got you so fired up?
This is where I'm going to have to be like really honest. Being the super fan that I felt that I was, and I mean, I take that, that title away from me. I think I was more deluded. But being on the social media, it exposes you to so much toxicity and so much hatred. And while I'm out there promoting Star Trek, which we all know is a very diverse show, it promotes that icon, Idic. And, I was out there promoting what I saw was a great Star Trek fan film, and it should have been celebrated. And I was met with a lot of resistance. Now, I wasn't fully aware of every detail. I was aware that CBS, I think, were not happy, but I was still bearing in mind that I was quite new to the fan film genre. A lot of the time I felt like the fan films were always shot in someone's garage with tinfoil and dusty bins. It was never something that piqued my interest, except for this one. I met with a lot of resistance and toxicity and some really hateful and personal insults. And that came from a lot of individuals who seemed to claim that they were being, real and, trying to advise me away from this, which I suppose in hindsight is, kind of right, but it was more the fact that they were very personal, and they didn't stop with me, they went with my family as well. So that sort of had my back up.
Yeah, it certainly is an interesting one, and One that I sort of found as well, it's a really interesting topic where heat gets generated and a lot of fire and a lot of flame gets thrown around. And I think the biggest point out of all of this is that both sides really have done some things. Certain individuals on both sides have done some things that probably aren't the best way of handling things. I know for a fact, and I took a break from Axanar and the groups that were opposed to Alec because of that level of personality involved, the head clashing almost of it all. And one thing that I try and do here at Trekzone is be open about everything and not just provide a one-sided attack. And you can look at it and sort of say, well, yes, Alec has done the wrong thing. He raised $2 million. Hasn't made the fan film still. But then there's the other side, and we'll get into Trollhunters in a second, where that is pretty serious. But there's also the other side where there were certain individuals in Axanar that were they were baying for blood, basically. And I guess that's sort of what you're saying there, that when you're sort of being personally attacked and vilified for what you believe in and what you support, obviously you're going to lean into what you support, because it's not coming from that side. So why would I go with that side? Is that sort of where your thinking was at that time?
Yeah, do you know, you sort of hit the nail on the head there. For me, and it stands out in my memory because it was on Twitter, and there was two names. There was a fake profile on Twitter called Trek47, and the other person was a well-known, shall we say, I don't like using the word hater, but let's just say a disgruntled ex-supporter by the name of Sandy Greenberg. And that is a name that does, I think a lot of people will have heard of on both sides. And, you couldn't have with these individuals, and it was many more like him, but he was the main one, that if you disagreed with him, even if you articulated your argument in a very civil way, because I had a great discourse and dialogue with Carlos Pedraza before I became one of Alec's minions. I had a really good, I had great debates with this man. He's like Yoda when it comes to debating. A lot to learn from that man.
Yes.
But these guys would go to the point where, let's be honest, Matt, I've had 4 new profiles, Facebook profiles, and that's while I was supporting Axanar, while I supported Alec. I had to change my profile because myself, my family were being targeted. I even had a notification to my partner claiming that I died, and was my profile still active? That's really, really freaky. I don't know who that was. I blocked a certain amount of people, let's just say about 4 or 5, and that all sort of stopped. But yeah, that's sort of what I had to deal with just by supporting something. And that was, I was very angry to say the least.
You look at that behavior and I guess you wonder why you don't. You look at that behavior and you don't really have to guess too hard as to why there is this very fixed line in the sand when it comes to this fan film. It is incredible that this one fan film can generate this much discourse and this much animosity. It is just incredible. One of the hot topics at the moment, and it has been for a little while, is this Trollhunters group. Now, it's a Facebook Messenger group of people that was created, we assume, by Alec, and it's a place where discussion of these so-called haters has been taking place. Can you take us through what that is or was and why it was there?
I was recruited to the Trollhunters group, which would have been around about November 2016. Now, I had been obviously a supporter of Axanar. I was approached by Twitter because I think I'd been doing it for what seemed like a lifetime of defending it. And I got approached to say, are you on Facebook? Would you like to join our Trollhunter group? Which was like, okay, well, I can't stand bullying for a start. And that's how I viewed it at the time, and still do. So I joined Facebook, and I was on there, and I thought, well, let's give this a go. And basically, it was how it was sold to me, Matt, was this is where we protect and defend Axanar. This is where we debunk all the fake news. And I hate using that term because I feel like Trump. But it's, it was basically any time there's false information, we were to be sent in and discredit and not allow too many people to gang up on like Axanar supporters. That I was with them on and off for about, I'd say about 3 years. Would have been around about 2019 that I ended my tenure permanently.
I guess one of the big things that's coming from this Trollhunters group is that it wasn't necessarily just a call to arms to support Axanar supporters. There were some pretty serious stuff being discussed in there, getting Sandy fired from his job, and some other pretty serious stuff going on as well. Were you ever across stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was a troll hunter for that incident where Jeff Craig rung and Sandy at work. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest on this. Sandy sort of brought that on himself. I think a lot of people are too quick to say that he's totally blameless. I don't think he should have called him at work, but I think a phone conversation should have taken place, because that happened with me and an AXA Monitor admin of Sean O'Halloran, who sort of called me out to call him, and he didn't expect me to do it, and I did, because I think sometimes people find it troublesome to communicate while typing. I sometimes do. I annoy people so many times, especially my family. But yeah, there was some times where I think they really did cross the line, and I think that was one of them. You don't call someone at work. As much as I'm not a great admirer or have a lot of respect for Sandy Greenwood, but work is work. That's for your family. That's for livelihood. You don't go that. You don't cross that bridge. But yeah, there was a lot of times I felt we were going a bit too far. I didn't personally myself. I might have said a few things out of place, and I will own up to that. I think I said I would like to slap Sandy or maybe punch him. He irritated me and insulted me that much. And that's what I don't like about being a part of that group, what it turned me into. But there were a few instances where I think they were talking about people's sexuality and using it for them, and then criticising people's work and the subject matter. There was one time I think they were trying to do that with Carlos Pedraza, and I said, look, that's not down to me. I mean, I didn't like the topic of his films, not my sort of thing, but let's leave it there. But it's sort of, that was the sort of thing.
Certainly a very interesting group. Certainly some interesting things done. As you say, taking that next step and doing the work contacting is crossing that line. But it's a very interesting topic because, having things online and being what's so-called keyboard warriors, and it doesn't matter what you say because it's not in person, and you can't get punched in the face for things that you say online. It takes that next level. But I guess, and it's really incredible that you made the phone call to Sean, and it sort of became a real life thing, if you will, by making those phone calls. Did that sort of change your mind and your opinion of what was going on when you started communicating with Sean and some other people, some more level-headed people, dare I say?
I don't know if Sean's level-headed. He'd probably hate me for that. I think talking to Sean, it was a bit of a shock because I was expecting from the get-go some quite aggressive conversation, but it literally, after what seemed like a 2 to 3, I think it was a 2 or 3 hour conversation, and it was like I got off the phone and it was like, he's just like me. It was just unbelievable. I think we must have said it like 5, 10, 15 times. Was like, oh my God, you sound just like me, or oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. And I got off the phone and it was like, wow, that's not quite what I was expecting from the devil, that the image which I'd been sold on, and from what I'd witnessed. He will quite happily admit there was many a times where I think we both overstepped the mark with insults. I always put my hand up and say, I never start a fight, but I'm willing to fire off if someone does. But yeah, it opened my eye a little bit, probably not enough, because we used to debate many for about a year or so after that, but it opened my eye to the fact, and this is why I started the Real Truth About Axanar Facebook page, was I had this mission to try and have civil debate with these detractors in an open forum where no one's going to be shouting insults. That was the original premise. But then that quickly got taken away and we had to have control, which was really, really poor.
Well, Steven, why did you stop supporting Axanar?
Well, we will say, I'll put this as polite as I can. I started to see a real horrible side to Alec probably a few months before I left the Trollhunters. How I left that was there was a big argument between Jonathan Lane and Alec regarding, I'm trying to remember now, but it was just, we were trying to advise him about the best way to respond to something and how to act about something, and he did not want to hear it. He was throwing insults at Jonathan Lane. He was throwing insults at pretty much anyone that disagreed with him, and it was just like, I thought to myself, you don't pay me for you to speak to me like this, and all I've done is, for the last nearly 3 years, all I've done is defend you. I've had to change my account so many times. I've donated to you and you've spoken to me like filth. I've had enough. I wish you the best of luck, but I'm done with this. I'm done with hate. So I left. I still was friends with Alec, but I wanted to distance myself from that. And I started to talk to friends that I'd made that were on both sides. One side was Axanar, the other was, Axanar. Justin Burton, Charles Baxter, and a few others. I was starting to get to know these people as a human being rather than a detractor. And there was something Carlos Pedraza wrote about the long line of people that Alec has interacted with and how they have said how he responds to them. And you know, I was ticking it going, yeah, he's done that to me. You know what? There's a familiar pattern. So I shared that on my Facebook page, and then literally the tirade I got from him and a few of the Axanar, the other fellow Trollhunters, you know, it was just like, oh my God, I've just shared this article that I actually found was interesting, and I'm being labelled a traitor. You know, all these sort of horrible names that in a different conversation, I got called a white supremacist for my political belief about Brexit. Let's not talk about that, but you know, I had my view on it. Alec disagreed with it. I got called a Nazi for saying that. And, you know, for wanting my country to be independent, like America, like many others. But that's just my personal view. But apparently I'm a white supremacist, and I've never said anything remotely supremacist ever. And I thought, that's it, you know, that's you know, I can't deal with this anymore. You're toxic. I don't want to be around you. But I still supported Axanar. I said, right, I won't go over to Axanar. I'm going to keep quiet. I'm not going to do anything. And then I got another tirade in a PM, and I was just like, you know, enough's enough. And that's it. I'm done with you, Mr. Peters. But then I saw I believe it was the Alec deposition with the Tiana prop works situation.
Oh, yes.
I watched that. And now, in my past, one of the things I studied for a long time, especially with some of the jobs that I was in, I mainly deal with customer service, or I used to. I was a trainer for a while. And one of the things I studied was people's body movements and behaviour, and especially micro expressions. Now, I'm not any fanatic on, you know, I'm not any like degree on that, but I always considered myself a good judge of watching someone's body language. And I watched that deposition, and I got a shudder watching this man, because I'd seen something like it before. And it was the Epstein deposition. It really creeped me out. I could tell when that man was lying. I could tell when Alec was lying. And the fact that he took money from a widow and not paid her back, and he's invested so much money, he's continually always spending, but he's not paid that money back. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't still. It's a disgrace. And I thought to myself, you've just supported a thief. And that disgusted me. It really, really sort of made me go back through everything I'd done, every word, every troll hunting log. And I was like, I've got to make amends for that, because I've just supported the wrong person. And yeah, it was not nice at all. It was a big wake-up call. And I don't think it's one I'm going to be right with for a long time.
Well, Steven, do you regret anything from your time supporting Axanar? I know what you're saying there, but articulating it, is there regret there from supporting Axanar?
I think the thing is, we all know Prelude was not done solely by Alec, if he actually had anything to do with a majority of the decisions that were made. Alec as the actor, I don't have a problem with him on that front, because I actually think for a first time, or for someone who's not used to acting, he did a really good job. And I can look back and watch Prelude and think, that is still an amazing feat. But I think I would not have liked to have gotten involved with the whole social media event and promoting Axanar. I would have liked to have maybe not engaged so many people on social media where you can't have that opinion, and then have to then when you've got your backup, when you're constantly being berated as a moron or as an idiot or as a whatever swear word that they can think of or insult about your intelligence. For me it was like, Alec could have literally kidnapped the Pope and I probably wouldn't have cared, because I was that irate and angry. But that's the thing I regret, not the product, was the recourse, the reactions. It was like tit for tat, and looking back on it, for me, the Trollhunters, logically, it's a good idea. If you think about it, a group of people put together to debunk false information. If you work for a company or a government, that people are being put, but for a fan film, and you're putting in that divide. You're putting in that it's us or them, traitors, haters. To me, it was like being in the mafia, and probably even worse to a certain degree. And people can throw insults at people. That's just everyday life. But then you're thinking about ways of how you're going to ruin that person, and digging up information. I mean, I've shared some information on Axanar with some of the excerpts from my Trollhunter logs, where Alec Peters was encouraging one of the Trollhunters to go after Tony Todd. I mean, go after the Candyman, to go after Kern. Are you for real? And I'm just like, and I don't even understand why I let that slip. I can tell you why. It was the hate. Hate generated the whole thing of Axanar. Not haters, just the whole bubble of hate that film has created. And it is horrible to have, the hardworking people that produce Prelude, like people that built the sets, who, Alec, we know what Alec's done with one of them, and gone after him, and have people like Richard Hatch, Apollo, my hero as a kid, is linked to a film that could be considered one of the biggest scams in fan film history.
Yeah, it is just an incredible series of events. This whole fan film and everything that's attached to it is just incredible. I think the other thing for me as well with the Trollhunters is that it's all well and good to put together a think tank to debunk false information and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff, though, that was being debunked or was being called out for action wasn't fake news. It was just anti-Alex campaign, which I think is the biggest thing as well. So I do wonder whether that still continues and whether there are discussions had in that group by an ever-shrinking minority of supporters for Alec. And it does it?
I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure that, Jonathan Lane is still one. I'm pretty sure John Tesla is one. There are a lot that are still, because he has two groups. He had one that was Axanar, and he had another one that was Axanar stroke the Orville, because Alec Peters has an Orville page. And I mean, is that the next franchise he's going to try and rip off? I don't know. But, I regret a lot of the time that I was involved in that, because I always used to say, especially I think it was something that my granddad taught me, which is, if you have to raise your voice if you have to shout at someone to get your point across, you lose that point. You should be able to talk. And if you agree to disagree, if you don't like it, you walk away. Alec is a mastermind in taking those who are insecure, that are a little bit, angry because they've been attacked by something that they love. He's a master manipulator and gets you to feel that you aren't the one to blame. You're not the one that's, hating. And he turns it up. And you're like, literally, you think you've got right on your side. But you haven't. If you agree to disagree, who cares what somebody else thinks? It's a fan film. People have said it. And I really wish I hadn't invested so much of my time and the mental health issues that I had and I was dealing with at the time. And I was just like, I've got to get online and defend this film. And I mean, it was just, I love Star Trek, don't get me wrong. When my wife says, what's the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek? I'm like, ugh, here we go. That is that sort of thing. I have to kind of like remember, she's your wife. Let it go. But when you're talking about ending someone's job, their career, because they disagree with you. Now, I do know Alec suffered a lot of abuse online, and I know some, and it is a very small amount of detractors, and I mean very small, that targeted people guilty by association. And that is what Alec preys on. He wants people to see them go after his partner, his friends. And that's what I used to see. And that would be like, just when I might have started to calm down and see what Alec was truly like, there would be something that would spare the moment, where someone gets stalked over 5 months with a phone call, or, I remember that, that was just that crossed that line. I mean, I saw some of the abuse that you received when you had that interview with Jonathan Lane, which, the Trollhunters saw as a victory. But to see when you're trying to do your job and you were receiving that insult because you were open, it was like, we've got to draw the line. And we can't see that line because Axanar is surrounded by hate, and that is all set up by Alec Peters, because controversy, hatred sells.
Yep, exactly right. Hate and sex go together in terms of selling plenty of stuff online. It is an incredible thing that I've been covering for almost 5 years now, this Star Trek fan film. Steven, just one last question. Do you think Alec is ever going to make this two-part Axanar?
I go by the saying, never say never, because maybe Alec has got that mentality just to spite someone. I would like to see it made because I think the fans of Axanar deserve it. I mean, I think everyone deserves it, whether they were a past fan or not. Whether I personally think he is, no. I think I've come to the realization that he is just using that to crowdfund and to fund his lifestyle, whatever that may be, because it certainly is keeping him from having a proper job and getting out there and earning money the honest way. So yeah, I don't think it's actually going to happen. I think he's got some Jewish space laser thing, or whatever that may be, So that could be the next way of crowdfunding to go to Axanar. I don't know, but I don't think in my lifetime Axanar will be made.
Well, Steven, thanks for opening up and thanks for beaming into Trekzone today, man. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the future.
Thank you very much again for having me. It was a pleasure.
Keep up to date with Twitter. Catch new podcasts daily on YouTube. Plus, we're beaming to your favorite podcast app 5 days a week. Just search for Trekzone and subscribe.